Hi, welcome to the fourth episode of these tutorials. This tutorial is going to be about masking, and masking is quite a big thing in After Effects. It's how I achieved this thing of the floating banana and the floating head, and basically it's about selecting areas, and you can kind of use what we've learned about keyframing so far to move these things. They're called masks, and it's a super useful thing to be able to do within After Effects. So I'm going to open up After Effects, and we can have a look at how to do this. So this is my project. You can see here there's 3 layers. The first layer is the banana. So I can just toggle these on and off. So that's the banana. And the next one is my head, making a little noise with my mouth. And the final one is the background with these things knocked out. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it with the banana this time, because I realized the banana is actually like, I don't know, it's much easier maybe to do it with like a circle or something. So I found a circle, and I'm actually gonna stop this recording, and I'm gonna record a bit of footage. So I've got the circle, and I'm gonna move it. Cool. So I'm going to use that bit of footage. I'm going to drag it onto my desktop. So I've got the circle. Yeah, and I'm actually going to keep recording this so I can use it later. Cool. So I'm going to open up After Effects, and I'm going to delete this stuff. We don't need that right now anymore. Oh, actually no. I'm going to save that. I'm going to open up a new project, new project, and I'm going to save that one. Cool. So we've got we've got this piece of footage, and I'm going to take that and put it into After Effects, and I'm going to drag that back. I'm going to make this bigger. Cool. So we have how I'm going to do this. Last time I told you this little square, create a new composition. You can actually drag any piece of footage you want onto that little square, and it creates a composition that's the same size and frame rate as your footage that you want to use. So if I play this, so I've got the circle, I'm going to move it. Cool. And I'm going to, so what we learned, so I only want this little bit of where the circle, like I don't need this beginning bit or the end bit. So I'm just going to cut out using what we learned in lesson 2. So I'm going to select the place in time that I want, and I'm going to do Command-Shift-D to make a cut, and then I'm going to go towards the end, and yeah, like here, I'm going to do Command-Shift-D, so I can delete that extra bit, and I can delete this beginning bit. And I'm going to go to the beginning and drag this to the beginning of the timeline. So now it's just this thing. Cool. And I'm gonna now move this thing, the work area bar to there. So I've just got this loop. And now what I can also do is I can right click or control click on the work area bar, and I can say trim comp to work area, and that will mean that the composition length and size is exactly the same size length as it's the same length as the clip that I've got. That just cleans everything up a little bit. So now I've got this piece of footage of the circle moving from left to right, and so the way that I do masking, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to do the zoom level thing and put it to fit, so it's large, or it's kind of, we can see it properly. And so the way that you do masking is so you remember in last episode, I used the pen tool and the shape tool, So if you use them without anything selected, you make a shape. But I'm going to delete that shape layer, and if I select a layer and then use the pen tool, it actually makes a mask. So it's made a shape onto the layer, but it's like actually made it in the form of a mask. I'm going to undo that, which is pretty, yeah, that's what masking is. So I can either do a pen tool, which I'm going to do later because I'm going to cut out my head, but I can also use the circle or the square or whatever, and I'm going to, so I'm going to make this circle around the circle. So there you can see I've roughly made a, it's not exactly, it's not exactly on the circle in the footage. So, but yeah, basically, right now I've made a mask. I'll slow down. I've made a mask, and if I hit play, it's basically made a mask in that footage. So it's that circle where it is, and the circle doesn't move, so it doesn't follow the thing. But we've got a circle in the footage, which is cool. We've got a mask. And so what I can do now is I can change the mask a little bit. I can select these little points. I can go down here as well where the orange is, and I can change it to a color that we can see a bit better. So I'm going to change it to like pink or something. And yeah, I can select these little things, little like mask path points. This is called the mask path, the circle, like the shape of the mask. Cool. So now I've got like quite a nicely masked out circle, but obviously it moves and we want to follow it. We want to move the mask. One thing we can do first is down here, you notice in the parameters underneath the layer, it's open, it's included now, it's like added a mask, it's added a set of mask parameters. So here in mask, I'm gonna say right now this mask is adding, but if I select subtract, now the mask is taking away. So it's like it's subtracting from the footage, and here it's like adding. It's basically, yeah, it's adding the footage. It's adding to the footage. So that's super useful. And like add and subtract are the main ones that you use. There's other ones, but they're when you have multiple masks on one layer, which we can go into later as well. But I'm gonna go none. Yeah, so add and subtract, but none is one where basically the mask doesn't do anything. So I can still see the mask, but I can still see the footage behind it as well, which is useful for what we're gonna do. So when you make a mask, it brings up these four options, which is mask path, mask feather, mask opacity, mask expansion. Right now we're just going to use mask path, and I can hit keyframe. I can hit the stopwatch, so that's made a keyframe down here. And so then it's kind of a similar process to just making something move. So then I can go along the timeline, and I can find where it starts to move. And so a thing about masking, right? I'll do it, and then I'll explain what I've done. So I'm gonna go along, and yeah, look at when it starts to move. I'm gonna place a keyframe there. So I'm gonna hit this little button down here, which makes a keyframe without moving anything. Or, it just makes a keyframe. I could also just move the mask a tiny bit, and then it's made the keyframe as well. And then I'm gonna move along the timeline to the end, to where it stops moving, and I'm going to move that mask over here. And you'll also notice that the circle's changed a bit because of the angle that I had it in my hand. So I'm going to actually drag that keyframe down a bit. Another way to do that, I'm going to undo. Another way to do that is to take one of these points and double click it. So that makes a box around the mask, and that means you can change the size of the mask and do whatever you want. But so I'm going to just use that instead, yeah. And then I hit enter, and then it's made it okay. And then it stays there for a bit, kind of stays there. So I'm gonna do this final little bit like that. Cool. So the thing with masking is that I want to make as few points as possible. In that way, I can let After Effects do most of the work. So if we notice here, the reason I did this was because so if we notice here, I have put one keyframe at the start of the clip, one keyframe at the where I've seen that the motion starts, the motion of the circle begins, and then I've put one where the motion of the circle ends, and then I've put a clip at the end. And this is where I've identified the main like beginning and end points of movement are. So I'll delete these keyframes, and I could so I've deleted those keyframes. I could just go from the beginning and set a new keyframe, and then move a few frames and make sure it's set, make sure it's lined up like this. Yeah, and then yeah, make sure it's lined up there, and then when it starts moving, make sure it's lined up there. But maybe you can start to see what's wrong with this, because basically I mean it means that to get any kind of accuracy, I would have to do almost every frame. I would have to do that because I've already here missed the beginning of, well, almost, but it's very easy to miss the beginning, or miss motions, and also make a mask that is quite not very natural. It doesn't move very naturally with the footage. So I'm gonna delete these keyframes, and I'm gonna go and quickly do what I had before. Hit that keyframe there and move to the end like there, and move it to long, and then one at the end. So so from here I can begin to refine. That's the whole idea of placing these keyframes at key points. So you'll notice here, this mask is moving linearly, in a linear way, like from point A to point B. But actually the circle in this case is not moving linearly, so it takes a little while to start up. It starts off slowly and moves faster in the middle, and then slows down at the end. So and now I can make a easy ease keyframe. So if I hit easy ease, now it'll actually much better follow the speed of the thing, and then I'm going to make it easy ease here as well at the end. So now it's kind of almost, well, it's like it's following it like reasonably well actually, but like not totally. And so now what I'll do is refine it. So I'll move along a little bit, and what I want to do now is find the bit where it's like the most out, like here it's probably the most not aligned. So I'm going to move that back, and I'm going to move it there. So now it's gonna be, so now you can see it's actually like pretty good, the second half, and then this first bit is bad. But so I'm gonna hit that and move it there. So basically now I'm just refining. I'm going like, I'm moving along the timeline, and I'm just looking at where it's kind of the most out, and then I'm just like putting it back in. And you can be as refined as you want basically. And yeah, so now it's pretty good now. If you can see, it kind of follows it pretty well. And so if we want to put it back onto add, that means it'll kind of make the mask work again. I can hit play. So now that's pretty sweet. We've got this moving circle, and let's do the same thing. All right, and yeah, from now also we can say maybe we want it to be, so we can increase the feather, so we can make the mask a bit more blurry. And also the expansion is sometimes quite useful. It's like you can make a mask, but then you can tell it to expand or contract a little bit. And yeah, and the opacity just says like if the mask is kind of on and off, but you can keyframe that one. Cool, so now we've got this kind of like slightly blurry on the edges moving circle. I'm going to mask out my head. So I'm going to do that. Basically, a good thing as well is that on one layer you can make multiple masks. So I'm going to select the pen tool this time and not the circle tool, and I'm going to click my head, and this time I'm going to use this pen tool, and I'm going to click and drag to make the points a little bit more, like make the lines more curved. So I can be kind of unprecise right now, but cool. So now I've got these two. I've got this mask and I've got this mask. So I've got two masks. I'm going to put them both to none, and I'm going to go into mask 2, and I'm going to hit the stopwatch again. So now, so actually my head doesn't move that much at all. And but again, right, so right now I notice that it's kind of in the same place up until about here. So I'm going to put a keyframe there, and then I'm going to drag along, and I'm going to go to where I notice my head kind of stops moving, so it's there. So I'm going to put another keyframe there, and then, yeah, and that's about it. So, and that keyframe, I'm actually going to move this over here. And the thing is, so, yeah, so now you can see it's already kind of in, which is good. But you'll notice that during this movement, here my ponytail changes. Sorry, my pigtail. So it goes behind my head. So actually, right now you can see how masking can become a bit more complex. So I'm gonna go to this keyframe, and I'm going to and sometimes you have to click off the mask and then back on it, if you can't select each individual point. Sometimes that's a problem, but yeah, if you just click off, and then they'll go solid circles, and then you can click back on, so then you can access individual points again. And I'm going to make this mask, I'm going to make it kind of, yeah, like go back to my head. So now it's pretty good. It's not perfect. So now I can double click and select and drag it into the right place again. And down here. Yeah. So now it's kind of, I mean, my hand is in the way, and it wasn't in the first video, at the beginning of this video. So it's not exactly perfect, but it's pretty good. Yeah, cool. And so now I'm going to add that one back in. So now I'll get the circle, and I'm going to add this one back in. So now I get my head, and I can press play. And actually, like, you can see this mask is it's showing a bit too much of the outline here. So I'm gonna decrease the mask expansion. I'm gonna select it and press down on my keyboard. And then I'm also going to make the feather a tiny bit more, so it's a bit softer. And so now, yeah, now the mask around my head is a bit better. Cool. And this stuff can basically, like, it can get really intense. It's called rotoscoping, this. And yeah, it can get really intense. Like, you can, go a bit crazy with it. And the thing is, the reason, it's really good. It's a really good idea to, say if you're rotoscoping someone's body moving, it's a really good idea to rotoscope things separately, to have separate masks. So one for the head, one for the arm, sometimes even one for the upper arm, one for the lower arm, one for the body, one for the other arm, upper and lower. because all of these things move independently in different directions. So it makes you really start to think about movement, like the actualities of like how things move. Yeah, so multiple masks is a good thing. And so now, so that's cool. We've got this. Yeah, we've got the circle and we've got my hand and my head. Sorry, I'm gonna copy this layer and paste it. So now we've got two, and I'm gonna look back in the mask thing. But now I'm gonna select each mask and I'm gonna go subtract instead. So now if I toggle off the visibility of the other layer of the circle in the head, now we've got this. We've got like the negative space. And yeah, and basically these two are now independent from each other, and I can move it. I can change the space of this one on the timeline. I can drag it to the left, which means it's going earlier in time, and then drag this bit out so it's still gonna be there. And now if I press play, now it's all kind of out of time again. Hope that makes sense and it's not too confusing. I mean, it's a very confusing visual, right? But I mean, so I can put it back. Actually, I can put it back in time so it's so they're both aligned again, and I can actually maybe change the opacity of the bottom layer, so it goes in and out. So now it's full, and now it's gonna be 0, and then it's gonna be full again. So then I'll press play. Yeah. Cool. I hope that one wasn't too confusing. I think that's everything about masks. Yeah, cool. I mean, it's not everything, obviously, but it's like that's the basics of masks. And yeah, hope it didn't like get too confusing then about the movement of things, in real life, and then the keyframes at the main points. But that's just like the way that it's good to use it. You put the keyframes at the main points of movement, and then you allow After Effects to do the work basically, and then you refine from there. Okay, thank you very much. I am gonna go and plan the next lesson. Cool, bye.